India's Minister Piyush Goel is speaking at the moment. Let's cut across.
Concern. And we believe in a dialogue, we believe in an exchange of views and understanding so that we can take it by consent. Government, of course, has the power to acquire this land through the legal process. But my own approach and the approach of Prime Minister Modi is wherever possible, we engage and through consent sort out the issues, look at what we can do for those people so that they have a better quality of life, educate them how this project will help them going forward. I mean, just yesterday I got a request from some youngsters in Palghar area in Maharashtra where this bullet train is going to pass. They were asking me that if we can give them some land for a playground and help them create a stadium. I've marked it to my department. I thought it's a damn good idea. We must do that so that the youngsters also, we want them to feel a part of the project and see an upgrading in their quality of life. And therefore the dialogue. And I'm quite sure that the talks are progressing well and we'll be able to sort it out. That's as regards the so-called obstacle that you are referring to. As regards the advancing the timelines, I still believe it's possible. I mean, engineering has all over the world progressed so much that things which used to take in India at least 20 and 30 years are now being done in 1 year and 2 years. So Indian engineering talent and government, the way of working in government have both evolved in the last few years. I'll give you a simple example. There's this issue of unmanned level crossings, right? We used to do about 1,000, 1,100 unmanned level crossings used to be converted to manned level crossings every year for several years, and it was going on with that pace. About 6 months ago, I threw them a challenge. I said, no, I want all of them eliminated in 6 months. Now, it immediately gave them a pretty serious setback. At that point of time, there were about 3,479. I said, I want all of them eliminated in the next 1 year. And you know what they did between April and September? They eliminated 3,005 of them in 6 months, against 1,100 that used to happen every year, of which 1,700 were done in the month of September alone, in 1 month. Almost twice what was being done in a year regularly. So there is enough and more that we are capable of. It's just that we have to challenge ourselves, set very aggressive deadlines and monitor the work. And I'm sure we can do very good and very fast-paced infra development in this country.
I'm sure you're right, and I appreciate the concern for the actual owners of the land. But would you give a time frame for that?
We were hoping to complete it before the end of this calendar year, maybe 1 or 2 months beyond that.
I see, yeah.
And otherwise, if at all if we're not able to reconcile it, we can still go through the acquisition route. But as a person who understands business and economics, you'll appreciate that in our PERT chart, this portion of land, both the portions across the tunnel, have still got a lot of lag time on our PERT chart.
Right.
Which is what has no obstacles, which is what is progressing, the designs, the development, the training of our engineers, all of that is on schedule.
So that's moving ahead in any case.
That's
it's
right.
Just the land.
So we have lag in our PERT chart on these two land acquisition areas.
And what about further plans for high-speed trains? Is there a second route in plan?
Absolutely. Please appreciate that this 500-kilometer route is the first of a larger game plan or a vision that we have. India is one of those countries where the passenger traffic and freight traffic both travel on the same rail line. And somebody who understands railways will be able to explain how that totally changes the dimension of running the railway. So you have a high-speed 130-kilometer speed train on the same route and another 30-40-kilometer passenger train on the same route, and in between a 70 kilometers per hour freight train. All of them collectively managing to bring down the average speeds very significantly and underutilizing assets worth billions of dollars. So we believe that these dedicated freight corridors that are being set up, on the one hand, to move freight to a dedicated line, and on the other hand, these high-speed passenger routes, where we'll be able to move passenger traffic to high speed and bring connectivity into the country. These will help us unclog the old lines and will really help us move passengers to destinations the way they really like to move. And going forward, I suspect a 10,000 kilometer dedicated not all need not be high speed. Some of them could be semi-high speed. Some of them could be little better, an upgraded version from 130 to 160 or 200 kilometers per hour. So we'll have a mix depending on the connectivity required for different zones and different parts of the country. And as we gain experience from the first 500 kilometers Mumbai-Ahmedabad Shinkansen line that we set up, as we bring that technology to India, which is a part of our agreement, as we make in India and get economies of scale with larger plans on the anvil, I feel the rates and the costs will also come down, make it much more attractive. And in the overall context of things, based on historical and empirical evidence, what happened in Japan, what happened in most of Europe, I think trains will still continue to be the most important form of transport, both for freight and for passengers in India.
And what would be the second line? Do you think, I mean, there's talk about Delhi-Chandigarh or expanding from Ahmedabad to Delhi or to Nagpur. Would you venture
We already have 5 different routes which are being studied right now. It includes Delhi, Chandigarh, Mumbai, Bangalore would be an excellent high-speed line to have. Another very exciting line that I personally am very passionate about is Agra to Varanasi. So connecting Agra, the beautiful wonder of the world, with the world's oldest living city today, Varanasi. It's a 700-kilometer distance, and I'm hoping to connect that with a semi-high speed, which could take you there in about 3 hours or 4 hours, 3.5 hours. So I have very exciting plans in my mind for the future.
And how is it doing in terms of, you have a background in finance and actually in accounting. What about the balance sheet? I mean, railways used to have their own budget, you know, which for good reasons was abolished by this government. How is the cost effectiveness?
I think one of the most important reforms this government has done is remove the separate budget of the railways. It had become a completely politicized exercise. Every year, new trains were indiscriminately announced to pander to political constituencies. Every year, a number of projects, new lines and all used to be announced. And then some of them would take max as long as 30, 40 years to complete. So a project would get announced with barely any intention to complete it in a deadline. And the pace at which funds were being allocated in the earlier years. I today have a project which has been going on since 1974. Can you believe that? It's still going on because now it's got into such a massive mess. Its cost is now some 40x of what it was originally slated to be. Land has become a challenge because whole towns have come up on the land, which was to be the route of that railway line. And I sometimes feel we'll be landing up throwing good money after bad money. So we are literally looking at everything from a zero-based budgeting point of view. And whatever projects are essential, then we closely monitor it, allocate as much funds as are required to once and for all complete it. For example, when I took charge about a year ago, I realized that there were 14 routes which are going to help me carry a lot more coal. And those will help power the needs of India, the electricity needs of India. So I put them on a fast track. 2 or 3 of those lines are already over. Another 4 or 5 will be over in the next 6 to 8 months. And all 14 will be over in the next 18 to 20 months. Now, these are lines whose payback, once completed, would be probably 3 or 4 years. Because the freight traffic on them would be so enormous. It would help the coal companies make huge profits along with that. And it will help the power companies, many of whom are under stress, also revive. So it's a holistic view that this government takes when we invest on any project. Let me tell you about one project I'm very passionate about, and I think you'll appreciate why I'm passionate about it. And in some sense, my previous speaker in this program, Kailash Satyarthi ji, would be very excited when he hears this. I'm taking up, we took up Wi-Fi's at the station. Prime Minister Modi started this project somewhere in 2015, I believe, that we should have Wi-Fi in all the railway stations. I'm happy to share with you that as against 0 when we came into office, today 707 stations across different parts of the country have free Wi-Fi at the station premises. And I'm throwing open a challenge that the Wi-Fi that the Indian Railways gives free to its passengers is the fastest in India. No other organization gives as fast a Wi-Fi as the Indian Railways. Now I'm taking it to the next level. I'm planning to put Wi-Fi another 5,000 stations. Now many people will tell me and will wonder that there are these remote stations. Why are you setting up a Wi-Fi at a remote station in some remote part of the country where there may be probably less than 100 passengers in the day? I'm setting it up there also because I believe that the station, being a kind of a nucleus where communities or villages around that station very often converge, I want all those villages to get together at the station, enjoy Wi-Fi over there, connect with the rest of the world, see what's happening everywhere. And I'm happy to share with you a recent experience where a coolie, a person who used to take weight on his shoulder and help passengers, sat at the railway station, used the Wi-Fi at the railway station, studied for the Union Public Services Commission exam, and will now become a senior government official.
Yes, I followed that story. It was exactly. I remember that when it came in the papers. It was very impressive. How many stations do you have? If you're just adding to 5,000.
I have about 6,000 stations which
about
are
6,000.
actively operated with our staff, and another about 1,500 to 1,800 stations which are called halt stations.
Right.
So in the course of a day, one train may just halt there for passengers to embark or disembark.
Right. Not actual destinations.
Not a full-fledged destination.
You don't buy a ticket to them. Right.
It's one of the world's largest networks. We have about 118,000 kilometers of running track, 68,000 kilometers of track length, overall connected length. And another exciting project, since you are talking about what we are doing differently from the past, is our mission to electrify 100% of the Indian railways.
Yes.
After Switzerland, which is a much smaller railway, India will be the first such a large network, the world's largest network to be 100% electrified.
And where are we now in terms of percentage?
We have about 40% of the network already electrified, but supporting almost 65-70% of the traffic. And by 2023, which also I'm trying to advance by a year, we will have 100% of Indian railways electrified, free of diesel. All the trains coming into Delhi, Mumbai, you live in Delhi. Today there's so many trains coming into Delhi which are run on diesel and spewing out all the pollution.
Yeah.
All of that will be eliminated. And very soon I'm coming out in collaboration with the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, which I used to head until a year and 1 month ago. I've just talked to the Honorable Minister on Wednesday, which is yesterday. I've just finalized terms with the Honorable Minister yesterday that we had a Council of Ministers after which we discussed it, that railways will be coming out with a offering or a tender to purchase 20 gigawatt of solar power for consumption by the railways in the day directly. The rest we will bank and use in the night until storage becomes affordable and we can actually store that power ourselves. And I want to make the Indian Railways not only 100% electric, but in the next 10 years, I hope to make it a zero net emission railway, contributing zero to the problems of the world, contributing zero to carbon emissions, and actually becoming a railway which is net zero emitter.
That's a fantastic ambition. And I mean, it's really very impressive. It will make a difference. No, I know exactly. I live not far from the Nizamuddin station in Delhi. And they generate a lot of diesel right now. But if you're cleaning up the railways, what about coal? I mean, coal and power. Coal is now 60% of Indian power, and India is one of the few countries that is still building new power stations, coal power stations. When will that be cleaned
Max,
up?
I've read a lot of articles where even The Economist has tried to criticize India on our coal consumption. But just as a mark of reference, India's per capita coal consumption, even today, as we are sitting in this room, is the same as it was in America in 1860, 150 years ago. Even today, India consumes just about as much coal per capita as the US consumed 150 years ago. Point one. Point two, our renewable energy expansion program is the most ambitious any country in the world has ever embarked on, including Europe or United States. Today, we have an installed base of renewable energy which in percentage terms is equal to the United States. They are about 17 point some percent.
20% here, something
I'm
like
also 17 point some percent. We are both at the same level in installed capacity, but I will overtake America in the years to come. And you know what America is doing in any case. I've not seen so many articles about that in The Economist though. Anyway, on a more serious note, I had this conversation with a very senior official of the previous administration who kept saying, no, but India must discontinue coal. I said, what do I inject the renewable power into? I need a base load. My transmission lines need a base load in which I can inject renewable power. And that base load for India is coal. Unless I have coal-based thermal power in the lines, I mean, you would actually, by now it's about sun is going to set. We would have to wind up this program right now if we didn't have coal-based power in the country. And we could probably have had some candlelight dinner or cocktails over candlelight.
Drop the mic.
So I think one must recognize the harsh reality that one country needs power 24 hours. And my people are not destined to live in darkness or destined to live without power in the non-sunlight hours. However, I think it's the most counterproductive argument that some people in the West particularly have been trying to articulate, that India should shut down its coal plants and should not invest in coal. On the contrary, India should invest more in coal, shut down those old inefficient plants which this government is doing, replace them by modern supercritical plants like Japan has done, and which we are now doing. We have all our new plants are highly energy efficient, are highly efficient when it comes to the pollution levels, carbon dioxide, sulfur emission. We don't have sulfur in our coal, so that's not our problem in any case. So we should be investing, replacing those old plants with modern plants so that our pollution level as it is will come down to 10% or 15%, considering the old plants had so much pollution. Simultaneously with this, we'll be able to inject more volumes of renewable power, and going forward, as storage becomes more affordable, I suspect we'll be able to achieve. Only recently, while accepting the award for, the award that the United Nations gave him for his contribution to climate change, in which Seoul Award is only 2 days back. Just before that, the Seoul Peace Prize, which has also talked about his contribution to climate change. But last month, the United Nations awarded him the highest award for cleaning up the environment. And the Prime Minister articulated, and I wish economists would take this to the rest of the world, that just like we have one nation, one grid, and one price of power now, why can't the world imagine one world, one grid, and one sun? Because after all, the sun is always there in some part of the world. Can we not set up transmission lines across oceans so that as the sun sets in India, it may possibly be able to draw power from Europe, where the sun would just be rising? And as that sun sets, probably the United States would start giving us power. And then later part of the day, Japan or China could start feeding us power. And in the day hours, we will feed power to Europe. So why not we look at the world as one grid?
That's a fabulous vision. And I think with floating solar, you could even have large parts of the empty Pacific supplying power to.
With offshore wind and with offshore, we could actually have solar panels on the oceans going forward. Africa could become a laboratory to provide large amounts of power to the rest of the world, which will also give them some income to improve the quality of life of the people there. So my Prime Minister is a visionary who actually thinks global, but acts locally, and acts to achieve that global vision in India.
Thank you. Well, I think we're going to be very annoying because the Honourable Minister does have to catch a plane, and we really don't have time to take questions from outside. I just want to ask one last question, which is about what would you say is your proudest achievement in government? What you're most proud of that you've done in the last 4 years in this government?
That's a question that could take me another at least half an hour more. But if I have to choose the one thing that I think I'm most satisfied about, is the fact that I was able to introduce in a very defined short period of 6 months an entire law by which natural resources of the country are being now given out through a most transparent auction process. And I did the reverse auction process by which I was able to get the best valuations for the natural resources of the country. And we set a base because of which for all of posterity, all of the future, this will be a guiding principle that the natural resources of this country cannot be given away to friends, relatives, members of your political party free of charge through a non-transparent discretionary process. But the natural resources of this country, which actually belong to the people of India, will always have to be given out through a transparent process, through an honest process, and the money that comes in from these natural resources will go to serve the poorest of the poor in India. Every single dollar, every single rupee that the government earns from the transparent allotment of these natural resources will go to serve the poor of this country, will help to improve the quality of life of the poor of India. And as the ideologue of my political party, Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay, had articulated, that the first right on the natural resources of a country are of the poorest person in the land, the last man at the bottom of the pyramid. I think we are working to fulfill that vision of Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay. Prime Minister Modi is committed to follow these footsteps where the country works in a fashion to bring about a better life for the underprivileged, for the marginalized sections of society, for people living in the villages, people living in remote parts of the country who have remained deprived of even basic amenities like electricity, like clean cooking gas, quality education, quality healthcare. And in a short span of 4.5 years, this government is happy that we've been able to truly take electricity to every consumer in the country, every willing consumer in this country. We'll be able to take healthcare to every single citizen of this country who could not otherwise afford it. We'll be able to take cooking gas to every woman's kitchen who otherwise would be smoking 400 cigarettes of equivalent smoke almost every day and harming the health of her whole family. We'll be able to take small MSMEs to the remotest parts of the country and give them a pride of place in the future of India. And holistically, develop India and all parts of India equally so that a person even in the remotest part of India in the northeast feels as much connected as a person living in Mumbai or Delhi.
Thank you very much. That's terrific and that's very inspiring. But I'm afraid we're going to have to concentrate on a much more limited ambition, which is to get you onto your plane back to Delhi. But thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Max. It was truly a delight talking to you.
Thank
and
you.
I look forward to meeting you again.
Super. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Really a pleasure. Enjoyed that very much. Yeah.